Hi everyone, this is Spring, the fiber enthusiast. Welcome to my channel. So as you've probably seen in the thumbnail, we are going to be making a hat. This is a crocheted hat. The items that you're going to need is a pair of scissors, some type of needle, a darning needle, one of these plastic yarn needles. Also, you might want to grab a stitch marker or two, they're always good to have handy. And then grab two different hook sizes. I have a 5 and a 5.5 because we're going to do our brim in the smaller hook size and then move up to the larger hook size for the rest of the hat. I will be using this actually is Red Heart Super Saver. I can't remember the name of this. It's just a worsted weight, so grab your favorite worsted weight and let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is create a slip knot. Grab our smaller hook, our 5mm hook. I'm going to move this stuff out of the way. Place a slip knot on your hook. Just like such. And now you're going to chain 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And now you're going to turn your work on its side. So let me zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm talking about. So here's the top side where you have those V's. We're just going to turn it on its side, and you can see now you have these bumps on the back side. We're not doing anything with this loop on our hook. That's all it is a loop on our hook. But we are going to place a single crochet down in the second bump from your hook. So we've got one up here close to the hook and then one down here. So go ahead and insert your hook through that bump on the back, yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over, go through 2. And that's a single crochet. Place 1 single crochet into each little bump on the back side. At the end, you should have 7 single crochets. So go ahead and do that, and I will meet up with you at the end here. Okay, so now you have all of those single crochets. You're going to chain 1 and turn your work. And now we're going to look at the top of our work. You see this first V here below your loop from your hook? That's our chain 1. We're going to go to the next one, which is a full stitch, and insert your hook through the back horizontal bar furthest from you. Insert your hook through that bar, yarn over, pull up a loop, and single crochet. And you're going to do that in every stitch across, just using that back horizontal bar, the furthest one from you. So we're going back loop only. And some patterns you may see it BLO. Now don't forget this very first or last stitch down here at the very end. There we go. And then you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and repeat that row until you have approximately 19 inches in length. So you're just going through that back loop only, all the way across every single row. And you can put, just to make sure that you don't miss that last stitch, that's where those stitch markers come in handy. You chain 1, turn your work, and place your stitch marker right away, and then you don't miss that very last stitch. So just go ahead and continue on 1 single crochet all the way across. Back loop only. You should have 7 stitches after every single row. then chain 1, turn your work, and repeat. So I'm going to continue working on this brim of the hat. As I said, the ends will get joined together so that way we can create a circle. It's going to go like that and connect. And then we will work up on the body from this point. So go ahead and do that to the circumference without stretching it. Just let it lay down flat on the tape, and you're measuring from your starting end and all the way to where your hook is. Okay, I will pick back up with you when I have reached my length. Okay, so I just want to break in here real quick, and you want to get roughly 19 inches. But if you're wanting to count rows, you're going to need 70 rows of single crochets. And also, if you don't want to count rows and you want to count these ridges that you're creating along the way, right here, you're going to need 35 of them. So lay your work down on the table after you've got close to 19 inches and your tail off to your right. And this very first ridge here, count that as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and continue on until you have reached the end. And this very last ridge here is 35. When you do that, your ending should be on the opposite side that you began. So my beginning tail is on the right, and my ending loop here, my last row, is ending on the left. So now I'm going to take my 2 ends and place them together so that way I can see the ends of the stitches very, very clearly. Because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be slip stitching these 2 together. And how I'm going to do that is going into, let me get that. That was a chain 1. Let me get rid of that. Okay, so going into, just like we've been doing, that back loop of this end, the end that we're ending on, and the front loop, which is the loop closest to you on the beginning piece. So that front loop, like that. And then all you're going to do is slip stitch these together. So I'm going to yarn over and pull through all. So I'm going to go to the next stitch and go through the back loop of the next stitch and the front loop of the opposite side. Yarn over, pull through, and pull through. Again, just pushing through the back loop and then the front loop. And slip stitch. So you're going to do this a total of 7 times to get all the way to the end. And I'll meet back up with you once we have completed that. Okay, so once you have slip stitched across, we're going to turn our work right side out. And now we're going to be working into these ridges that we have created. So I want to slip stitch into this very first rib from where I'm at. And I'm going to do that by first changing my crochet hook from my 5mm to my 5.5mm. So I'm going up a half a size. Now I'm going to insert my hook into these vertical bars on the side of these ridges. And I'm going to pick them up just like that. And I'm going to yarn over and pull a loop through and through the loop on my hook. And now I'm connected to the top of that ridge. Now I'm just going to simply chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. Now that counts as my first front post double crochet. Yarn over, and we're going to go into this next ridge, the very top of this next ridge. Now we just picked up the 2 vertical stitches for a front post. We're actually going to work in between these 2 by placing a double crochet, chain 1, and 1 more double crochet into that same stitch. So you've created a V stitch now into that ridge. And now I'm going to go over the front post double crochet one more time. This is our repeat, a front post double crochet and a V stitch. And you will repeat that all the way around. So yarn over just like you're going to do a front post double crochet, and we're going to reach down here and pick up those vertical stitches. And sometimes it can be a little tricky when you're adding a little bit bigger hook. Okay, here we go. We now have both of those vertical stitches on the hook. I'm going to yarn over and pull through both of them. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So that is a front post double crochet using this rib from our brim of the hat. And then one more time a V stitch into our next ridge by going between those 2 vertical stitches there. So double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet back into that same stitch. So go ahead and continue working around, and you should come out with 18 V stitches. I'll see you at the end. Okay, so if you've been following along with me, you should have 17 V stitches when you get to your last ridge facing you, before your very first front post double crochet, which was that chain 3. Now there is another ridge to work into. It's just on the opposite side. We are going to, between these 2 ridges, we're going to place a V stitch right in between those 2 to create the 18th V stitch. So yarn over and just insert your hook into a stitch in between them 2. Double crochet, chain 1, and back into that same stitch, double crochet. And now you're going to slip stitch to that very first chain 3. So there is your 18th. Instead of being on a front-facing ridge, it's actually on a back-facing ridge. Okay, the next step is all of your front posts stay front post. The only thing that will change is instead of a V stitch, we're going to place a puff stitch. So here we are at our beginning chain 3. You're going to front post slip stitch. That way it continues to make it a front post double crochet. Now chain 1, 2, and 3. And now we're going to do a puff stitch into the chain one space of our V-stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, 5 loops on your hook. Yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, 7 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all 7 and chain 1. And then front post double crochet your next front post double crochet. And let's do that repeat again, and you're going to repeat this all the way around. So we're going to do another puff stitch, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, and pull up a loop, all in that chain 1 space of your V-stitch. You will have 7 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through all 7, chain 1. Front post double crochet your next front post double crochet. Repeat that all the way around, and I will meet back up with you and show you how to finish off this round. And this is round 2, which begins your repeat rounds. Okay, so I've come to the end of round 2, which is the first of our 2-row repeat. And I have finished the round with a chain 1. And now I'm going to join to this very first chain 3 with a slip stitch, and then wrap around behind that chain 3 post, yarn over, pull up a loop, and slip. So that way it creates that front post all the way down. Again, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3. And remember those V-stitches? Now we're going to put that V-stitch in the chain 1 space above your puff stitch. So yarn over, insert your hook into that chain 1 space above that puff stitch, double crochet, chain 1, and 1 more double crochet into that same stitch. And front post double crochet around your next front post double crochet. And that's your repeat around. Yarn over, double crochet into that chain 1 space above your puff stitch, double crochet, chain 1, and 1 more double crochet into that same stitch. And then front post double crochet around the front post double crochet. You're going to continue to work these 2 rows, the puff stitch row and the V-stitch row, until you have reached a puff stitch row and you have 4 rows of puff stitches. Okay, so now we're going to start our decreases, and I will let you know what row I'm on. We have our first round of V-stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I am now starting round 9. And that, like I said before, was 1, 2, 3, 4 rounds of puff stitches. So on round 9, we are going to do a small decrease, and we're going to continue working in pattern for the first 2 puff stitches. So we're front post double crochet, so chain 1, 2, 3, and see how by wrapping around that chain we're creating a front post look. So okay, we have our first front post double crochet. We're going to place a V-stitch on top of the first puff stitch here. So double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet. Front post double crochet around your next front post double crochet. And place a V-stitch on our next puff stitch. So double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet, all in the same stitch. And now we are going to do a 3 together double crochet decrease. So we're going to decrease from this post, this puff, and this front post. So yarn over, and we're going to do half of a front post double crochet. So yarn over and go through 2. And now we're going to yarn over and go into the stitch above that post, yarn over and go through 2. So now we have 2 stitches on our hook here. And now we're going to do a yarn over, half of a front post double crochet. So yarn over and go through 2. And you should have 4 stitches on your hook. The stitch finishing off the V's and the 3 half of double crochets. Now you're going to yarn over and go through all 4 stitches. And what you've done is taken this post and brought them together and turned all 3 of those stitches into 1. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and place a V-stitch above this next puff. And that's the repeat. So double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. I'll work through this repeat one more time. Front post double crochet around your next front post. V-stitch on top of your next puff. And now we're going to do that 3 together double crochet decrease. So using these posts and that puff stitch. So yarn over and start to do your front post double crochet, but only completing half of it. Yarn over and do a half of a double crochet into the puff stitch. Yarn over, and this last front post double crochet, do a half of a double crochet there. Yarn over and go through all 4 of them loops and go back to V-stitch. So the next thing you're going to do is a V-stitch on top of this puff. Front post double crochet, V-stitch, and then 3 together decrease, double crochet decrease, and repeat that all the way around, and I will meet up with you at the end for the next round. Okay, so I've come to the end of round 9, and I'm going to do my last decrease right here on these last 3, well, your last front post double crochet, your last puff, and connect to that first front post double crochet, which is i.e. your chain 3. So as we've done prior to, we're going to yarn over and do a half of a front post double crochet, yarn over and do a half of a double crochet through the top of the puff stitch, and then we're going to go straight over to that chain, insert our hook, pull up a loop just like that. So that gives us 4 loops on the hook, yarn over and pull through all 4, and now you have decreased that down to 1 stitch. Now what we're going to do to start round 10, we're going to front post around all 3 of those stitches that we just put all together. We're going to reach around behind them and front post. So pull up, front post, got a slip stitch there. Okay, so I've got them all grouped together now with that slip stitch from behind, and chain 3, 1, 2, 3. So that creates our first front post. And as I said, that ridge of front post double crochets and that one are now 1 on each of our decreases. So now we're going to continue just like we've done before and puff stitch into the chain 1 space of the V. Chain 1, front post double crochet around the front post double crochet, puff stitch into the chain 1 space of your next V stitch, chain 1, and here's where we're going to front post around our decrease. So reach in behind, yarn over, and reach in behind all of that was decreased together. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and double crochet. So now you have front post double crocheted all of that together. I'm going to go over this one more time with you, and that is your repeat for this round. So we're going to do a puff stitch in the chain space of our next V, chain 1, front post double crochet around your next front post double crochet, puff stitch in your next V stitch, chain 1, and here's where we're going to group all that together. It's already down to 1 stitch. Now we're going to front post it. So yarn over, we're going to insert our hook and pop it back out, yarn over and pull up a loop. Now double crochet. So that just front post double crochet around that decrease. Okay, so let's join together and finish up round 10 and begin round 11. So I finished with the last puff stitch. This was a front post around all of that grouping. So all we need to do is slip stitch to that chain 3 and slip stitch to make it a front post. And now we're going to chain 1, 2, and 3. And this round is worked exactly like we have worked previous rounds. We're going to place a V-stitch on top of our puff stitch and front post double crochet around the front post double crochet. I'll do a couple with you and leave you to finish the round. So the first one is a V-stitch. And now a front post double crochet and a V-stitch. Okay, so go ahead and continue on working in the round until you have finished round 11. And we'll move on to 12, which is our next decreasing row. Okay, so now we're just going to slip stitch as we have been doing to the chain 3 and reach around behind that post, yarn over, pull up a loop and pull it through. Chain 1, 2, 3. And now we are going to do another decreasing row. So just like we've been doing, we're going to do puff stitch into that V-stitch. And we're going to chain 1. All the same there. The only difference is we're not going to front post double crochet around this front post double crochet. We're going to go straight into this next chain 1 space and place another puff stitch. And pull through and chain 1. Now you're going to front post double crochet around the next front post double crochet. And we're going to repeat. Puff stitch in the next chain 1 space of the V. Chain 1. Skip your next front post and go into the next V stitch and do another puff stitch. And chain 1 and front post double crochet around the next front post double crochet. Okay, and how you know you're lining up right is you're continuing where we decreased. You'll see this where they come together, these front post double crochets. You're continuing the front post double crochet there, and the ones in between we're going and skipping over, and it's coming to a stop. And now we're going to slip stitch to that first chain 3. And wrap around behind the post and slip stitch. That way we're keeping that front post appearance. Okay, so for round 13, chain 3, and we're going to go straight in between these puff stitches and create a V stitch. Then you're going to skip over to your front post double crochet and front post double crochet. And that is your repeat around. Skip over your next puff stitch, and in between the two, you're going to place a V stitch. Chain 1 and double crochet. So you're just in between those puff stitches, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, right in between them. And then front post, the front post double crochet. V stitch between these last 2 puff stitches. And now we're going to slip stitch to that first chain 3, which was our mock front post double crochet. Reaching behind the post and slip stitching that so that way it makes it a front post. And that will end round 13. Okay, so round 14, we're going to chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to go back to puff stitch in the V stitch and front post double crochet your front post double crochet all the way around. Chain 1 and slip stitch to that chain 3 right there. Reach around and make it a front post by slip stitching around the chain 3. Like we have been doing. Okay, let's go ahead and finish this hat up. We're just simply going to single crochet 2 together all the way around. So insert your hook into that chain 1 space above your puff stitch, pull up a loop, and go behind the post stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and go through all 3. And we're going to do that again. So insert your hook into that chain 1 space, yarn over and pull up a loop. Go behind that post, yarn over and pull up a loop. 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. Let's do that again. Insert your hook to the chain 1 space, yarn over, pull up a loop, go behind the post, yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 3. And now we need to do that again. You just have to turn the hat as we go. Insert your hook to that chain 1 space above the puff stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, go behind the post, yarn over, pull up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and go through all 3. All right, we're down to the last one here. Insert your hook to that chain 1 space, yarn over, pull up a loop, behind the post, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over and go through all 3 loops on your hook. And now we're going to slip stitch to that beginning stitch, beginning single crochet. Here we go. Now you should only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches. So now you're going to want to cut at least a good 4 to 6 inch tail, because we're going to sew this in and collect those stitches. So just cut a 4 to 6 inch tail. And I like to pull it through my loop as if to crochet that last stitch. So just pull the tail right through that stitch and tighten it up. That gives something secure for it to pull against. Then you're going to take your needle and thread your needle. Then all you're going to do is open this up, and from the underside I start. I come up under the stitch to bring this yarn tail around to the bottom side, and then I go in and out of the stitches, down through one, up through the next, pull it through. Okay, we're going to go do that again, down through one and up through the next. Do that again, down through one and up through the next. Now we're back to the beginning. I'm going to insert my needle through the next stitch, hold it between my fingers on the underside, and turn this work inside out, and place my hand back up into the hat, pull my loop with my tail thread on it, and now I want to cinch down that center good and tight. And I'm going to weave this tail around a couple more times, just random threads. And while doing that, I'm going to lock in a couple of stitches. Just before that loop goes all the way through, I might do a couple just like that, pulling it through. Okay. And this last one I'm going to wrap around twice, cinch it down good and tight, and that will hold it. And you can sew yours in however you want. That just happens to be the way that I do it. And then I'm going to remove that tail off of my needle. And the only thing I have left to do is to sew this tail end in also. Okay, everybody, so I really hope that you found this tutorial fairly easy and enjoyed it. There will be a matching cowl to this hat to make a complete set. So there you have it. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed. Be blessed and be a blessing to someone. Until next time, bye for now.